We have Willow. Pronouns are she, her. Welcome, Willow. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm recovering nicely. I'm ahead of schedule, but I'm still weak. Uh, I'll give the update later. Let's get on to your point. I'll talk about me after.
I know the feeling. I think I had I think it was 3 surgeries in 2020. So I know the
Wow.
feeling. So I wanted to ask. I've been getting some kind of like mixed signals from different creators in the atheist community about transphobia in the atheist online community. Um, what's your take on like the amount of transphobia among the atheist online community and how frequently you see it?
So there are people who are going to define transphobia in slightly different ways, and there are other people who are going to make claims of something, some action or statement or whatever being transphobic that not everybody's going to agree on, including not all. You can't even get all trans people on the same page. I had a former friend who said something along the lines of, if any trans person claims that something is transphobic, then it necessarily is, even if other trans people disagree. And I have a very big problem with reasoning like that because it suggests that somebody cannot possibly be wrong. Um, when it comes to the atheist community in general, I'm reluctant to say that it's any better or any worse than any other similar demographic. I think by and large it's better, only because not because of the religion, well, maybe a little bit because of the religion. Like if you're an atheist, you don't have a holy book telling you it's wrong to be gay, that it's wrong to be trans, or that your narrow view of understanding gender issues based on ancient books that doesn't exist within the atheist community. So I would like to think, and it seems to be the case, that we're better, but nowhere near perfect. And the best thing to do for us, I think, is to keep doing everything in our power to engage with the trans community and help amplify the voices that educate all of us. I mean, all of us have managed to get stuff wrong, but I don't think the atheist community has an especially over the top problem with transphobia. However, and then I'll let you jump in here, I also don't often think there is an atheist community. I think there's a bunch of different atheist communities and secular communities and skeptic communities, and that they overlap some. And so, like I'm not a YouTuber, even though I'm doing this on YouTube. There's a specific group of people who are, my channel's not monetized on YouTube and things like that. It's, as somebody who went to tons of conventions and will be going to more of them, I tend to view the atheist community a little differently than, hey, there's a bunch of people talking on Twitter and they're all atheists and therefore that's the atheist community. But I will say, and then I'll stop, there's definitely problems with transphobia. I was asked and offered money to debate someone who I'm not going to name today, who is an atheist, who has said and done some things that were definitely transphobic. And I was going to do that debate, and we were going to debate social justice issues and transphobia and things like that. Unfortunately, they didn't want to do it unless they could do it on their channel, because I don't even know why. But there, I guess, Willow, the answer from my perspective is there are problems. There are ways to make it better. What we need is more voices. I don't think the atheist community is particularly bad, but then again, I'm the beneficiary of mountains of privilege, and I'm not trans, so I don't have to live it the way other people do. Now, granted, I do live with someone who's trans, so I at least have some point of reference, and I see what happens to her from all sides. But what are your take on it?
I think you made some really good points. I'm actually new to this community because, like the atheist kind of community here, if you want to call it that. I actually just started up a channel last year that a chunk of it is anti-apologetics. But I think you made a really good point with pointing out how transphobia is kind of difficult to define sometimes.
It
Because
should be
what's
easier.
transphobia to one person is not really transphobia to another person.
Yeah.
Obviously, sometimes you see things, especially on like Twitter, which is just the cesspool of the internet. that's just horrific, and it's blatant abuse of trans people. But for some people, getting the wrong pronoun for them may be transphobic. And to me, you have to give people a little bit of grace, because, it can be hard, especially people that are early in their transition. It can be hard to get pronouns right if you don't know that person. You pass somebody on the street and you've never seen them before, or you're checking someone out at a restaurant or a grocery store or something. They may misgender you if they've never seen you before and they're having a tough time figuring out which gender you're presenting as, and they're too uncomfortable to ask. And somebody may consider that transphobia. So it is tough to nail down. You pointed at this a little bit, but I was going to follow up by saying, like, what specifically, if any, ideas do you have to kind of help educate, I guess? Because I don't know what really I can do outside of my home because of my health, but this is kind of an important thing to me. LGBT rights and reproductive rights. I'm actually trying to get volunteering at my local abortion clinic. And like I said, I started my channel, and that's actually brought a lot of joy to me to be able to try to educate people and educate myself on these things as well. But I don't know what else I can do other than try to just throw my voice into the pile, so to speak. I didn't know if you had input on other ways.
That may be the big thing. So first of all, right here on the Line Network on Thursdays, so tomorrow, is the Transatlantic Call-In Show hosted by Arden Hart and Katie Montgomery. They're a call-in show devoted to addressing all things trans rights. While I know that they want and occasionally do get some gender critical /turf/ ignorant bigots to call in to kind of be educated and corrected, I think that's one point of education. One of the things is also to get people's stories in, but to build communities. In the last couple of years with COVID, a lot of the things that we would have done, in person and hanging out to show that this community is different or better, which I think it is slightly, but who knows? We can't do. And I don't know when that's going to happen again. I'm looking forward to going to a couple conventions. I think the best thing to do is at these conventions, make sure that the speakers at conventions are representative of the various demographics within the broader atheist community, which means while I like to talk, I don't have to speak at everything. And the more your speaker panel at your convention looks like me, the worse you're doing at representing all of the atheist community. Now, we still need, unfortunately, bearded old white guys who are philosophy geeks who want to debate. We just don't need them as much as we used to. And when we have speakers at events, I want to see members of the Hispanic free thought community. I want to see members of the Black non-believers. I want to see the trans community represented. And we're seeing more and more of this, and it's not new. I mean, I've been going to conventions. Beth had a friend named Dory who was trans, and probably 12, 13 years ago was giving kind of like Trans 101 lectures at atheist events. We need more of that. And the other thing is there needs to be some difficult discussions, because, if somebody's going to say, like when you were saying, you perhaps cut somebody some slack, I do pretty good in the sense that when it comes to using people's preferred pronouns, just because it's generally easy for me. There are exceptions. I have a couple of people I know who are non-binary and who prefer either they or new pronouns. And I have slipped because I knew them prior to them identifying as non-binary. And every time I slip, it's oh my gosh, I have actually hit myself physically, going, you dumbass, why are you still screwing this one up? And it's one of those things we've heard from people who transitioned at various ages in their life. And by transitioning, I'm not remotely saying that somebody changes their gender. It's about letting the world know what their gender actually is. And there are parents who have raised what they have always considered a son or a daughter, who have difficulty making a shift once that son or daughter identifies as either a daughter, a son, or neither. And I think there's a lot to be said about cutting people slack and saying, okay, I get it. You don't get this yet. There's a strong difference between someone getting it wrong out of ignorance or a slip or, a brain fart or whatever else, and someone being an intentional asshole and going out of their way to misgender someone or dead name someone. I think those are very different things. And it's worth pointing that out. But at the end of the day, neither of them need to go unaddressed. If someone can easily slip and misgender someone else, then it should be just as easy and even more okay to just correct them. Oh, you said she and they prefer they, and then move on.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that if somebody really cares about the identity of somebody, say their friend or a child that's transitioning, and they get the pronouns wrong, I think the only reason it would be a big deal is if it's a point of contention. If you're actually in an amicable relationship with this person and you are caring about the identity change and you're trying to be respectful, then it shouldn't be a big deal when you mess up, and it should just be a fix and move on thing, like you said. I think if it's I messed up and we can't talk about this thing and the whole thing is awkward, then that means that there's like an underlying problem there.
Yeah.
That needs to be addressed, because obviously you're so uncomfortable that you can't even talk about the issue if you get the wrong name.
Yeah, part of this debate, and I'm not going to get into it now, and I don't want to keep you because we've got other callers, and I appreciate this, but the debate that was going to happen, the individual in question would seem to be upset that because they disagreed on a subject, they would be labeled a bigot. And they're like, that seems to be a bridge too far. Why would you call me a bigot just because I got something wrong or because I disagree? And while I haven't responded to this person, my answer would be this: you are a bigot. If you run around identifying yourself as super straight, you are a bigot. Does it mean you're the worst person ever? No. Does it mean that you deserve to be excommunicated and never talked to again? No. Does it mean that you're beneath contempt and somebody shouldn't try to explain this? No. But you are, in fact, a bigot. And if it makes you uncomfortable that people are calling you a bigot, that's the point of calling people out on bigotry. Transphobic doesn't mean you're afraid of or hate somebody who's trans. It's in the same way that hydrophobic doesn't mean something's afraid of water. It means an aversion to. It means that you are not supportive of. And when you say something like, oh, I'm super straight, we know what that means. It means that you have an aversion to trans people. One that, by the way, for that particular thing with being super straight, which is the people who are like, oh, I'm not attracted to anybody unless they're cis. You don't get to know whether or not somebody's cis. It's none of your fucking business. And how dare you lie and pretend like you are attracted to someone before you ever have a hope of knowing whether they're trans or cis in almost every circumstance. You look at somebody, you hear somebody, you read somebody, you see something, and boom, you're attracted to them. It's only, this is the reason why you stop being attracted to someone, and that is a demonstration and an application of the bigotry you're being accused of. Not you, Willow. I'm sorry. It was a rant on my part. But yeah, I got to move on. I hope that answered your question. And if not, by all means, call into Transatlantic tomorrow, because you'll get better answers from Katie and Hardin than you're going to get from me.
Well, thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it. If people do want another trans resource, I've actually got a whole series on my channel. I've spent 3 months working on a research paper about it, and you can find it on my channel. It's Willow the Wendigo. It's going on right now.
Awesome. Thank you.